Turkey just issued what they're calling their final warning to Greece, and the language is absolutely chilling. President Erdogan gave Greece 48 hours to reverse course or face consequences he described as severe and irreversible. Turkish military forces are mobilizing, warships are taking positions, and intelligence reports suggest Turkey is preparing for potential military action. The clock is ticking, and what happens when that deadline expires could reshape the entire Mediterranean. This is the most dangerous moment in Greek-Turkish relations in 50 years. Before we break down this explosive ultimatum, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. The next 48 hours could change everything, and you need to stay ahead of developments that are unfolding by the hour. Let me give you the exact words Turkey is using, because the language itself reveals how serious this is. President Erdogan addressed the Turkish parliament with unusually blunt and threatening rhetoric. He stated that Turkey has exercised strategic patience for too long while Greece has systematically violated Turkish rights in the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean. He listed specific grievances: Greek militarization of islands that are supposed to remain demilitarized under treaty obligations, Greek obstruction of Turkish maritime commerce, and Greek attempts to exclude Turkey from energy resources. Then came the ultimatum itself. Erdogan demanded that Greece immediately cease what he called illegal military activities on disputed islands, allow free passage of Turkish vessels through international waters without harassment, and commit to negotiations on maritime boundaries based on equity and fairness. He gave Greece 48 hours to provide concrete commitments. And then he said something that sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles worldwide. If Greece does not respond appropriately, Turkey will take necessary measures to protect Turkish national interests using all available means. That phrase, all available means, is diplomatic code for military action. It's the language countries use when they're preparing for war, but want to maintain some deniability until the moment strikes. Turkish officials speaking to media have been even more explicit. Turkey's defense minister stated that the Turkish armed forces are ready to defend Turkish rights wherever necessary. The chief of the Turkish General Staff was photographed inspecting troops along the Aegean coast, a symbolic message broadcast on state television. The implication is crystal clear. Turkey is prepared to use military force if Greece doesn't comply. Now, why is this happening right now? What triggered Turkey to issue such a dramatic ultimatum at this particular moment? The answer involves multiple factors coming together in a perfect storm. First, the commercial shipping situation we discussed previously has cost Turkey enormous economic damage. Turkish exporters are furious, and domestic political pressure on Erdogan to respond forcefully has been building. Turkish business associations have calculated losses exceeding $3 billion in just the past month. Turkish public opinion, inflamed by nationalist media, demands that the government take action. Second, Turkey's regional position has been weakening strategically. The Greece-Egypt energy deal, the Greece-Cyprus-Israel alignment, European support for Greek maritime claims, all of these developments have isolated Turkey. From Ankara's perspective, Turkey is being systematically excluded and encircled by hostile coalitions. Turkish strategic planners see a closing window of opportunity. If Turkey doesn't act soon to break this encirclement, the situation will only get worse as these opposing alliances solidify. Third, there are domestic political calculations. Turkey faces economic challenges, including high inflation, running above 60% annually, and currency volatility. Erdogan's political support has faced pressure, particularly in urban areas. A strong foreign policy stance, particularly one that appeals to nationalist sentiment, can rally domestic support and distract from economic problems. This is classic political strategy. When facing domestic troubles, create external confrontations that allow you to wrap yourself in the flag. Fourth, Turkey may be calculating that the international response will be manageable. The United States is distracted by other global priorities. Europe is divided and often ineffective. NATO has proven unable to mediate Greek-Turkish disputes. Russia would probably welcome NATO chaos. China won't intervene in a Mediterranean dispute. From Turkey's perspective, the international environment might actually be favorable for bold action. But here's what makes this situation absolutely terrifying. Greece has already responded to Turkey's ultimatum, and the response is defiant rejection. The Greek prime minister addressed his nation shortly after Erdogan's statement. He declared that Greece will never submit to Turkish threats and intimidation. He stated that Greek sovereignty is non-negotiable, Greek territorial integrity is absolute, and Greece will defend every inch of Greek territory with all available means. He called on the European Union and NATO to stand with Greece against Turkish aggression. Greek opposition parties have rallied behind the Prime Minister's stance. There's a rare moment of national unity in Greece around resisting Turkish pressure. Greek citizens have been demonstrating in streets, waving flags, and expressing solidarity with their military. The Greek public is psychologically prepared for confrontation, which makes de-escalation politically difficult for any Greek leader. So we have two countries, both issuing ultimatums, both declaring they will use all available means, both mobilizing military forces, and both facing domestic political pressures that make backing down extremely difficult. This is the classic recipe for war that has repeated throughout history. Neither side wants to appear weak. Neither side believes the other will actually follow through. Both sides miscalculate the other's resolve. And then something happens that crosses a line, and suddenly countries find themselves at war. Let's examine what military preparations are actually happening because these are concrete indicators of how serious this situation is. Turkish military forces have moved to forward positions along the Aegean coast. Artillery units, air defense systems, and amphibious assault capabilities have been repositioned. The Turkish Navy has sortied a significant portion of its fleet into the Aegean Sea, including amphibious assault ships, frigates, and submarines. Turkish Air Force activity has increased dramatically, with fighter jets conducting patrols near Greek airspace, and in some cases briefly violating it in deliberate probing actions. Satellite imagery analyzed by defense observers shows Turkish military buildup at multiple coastal locations. Amphibious vehicles and landing craft have been moved to ports with direct access to the Aegean. Special forces units specializing in island warfare have been concentrated in western Turkey. Mobile missile batteries have been deployed to positions where they could engage Greek aircraft or ships. This isn't routine military activity. This is preparation for potential combat operations. Greece has responded with comprehensive mobilization. Greek islands near the Turkish coast are on high alert. Greek military forces have been recalled from leave. Reservists have been notified to prepare for possible activation. The Greek Navy has positioned vessels to defend key islands and shipping lanes. Greek Air Force has scrambled fighters repeatedly, and air combat patrols are running continuously. Both countries are essentially on a war footing. Intelligence agencies across NATO are watching with extreme alarm. Western military officials are briefing their governments that the risk of conflict is the highest it's been in decades. Some assessments put the probability of military clash in the next week at over 60%. That's an extraordinary assessment reflecting genuine belief that war is not just possible but likely. What would conflict actually look like if it happens? There are several possible scenarios. The most likely initial scenario involves limited use of force. Turkey might conduct a military operation against a specific target to demonstrate resolve without triggering all-out war. For example, Turkey could use special forces to land on a small, disputed, uninhabited Greek island, plant a Turkish flag, and then withdraw. This would be symbolic assertion of Turkish claims without bloodshed that makes escalation inevitable. Alternatively, Turkey could conduct airstrikes against Greek military installations on disputed islands. The targets would be military facilities, designed to degrade Greek capabilities while limiting casualties. Turkey would claim this is proportionate response to Greek militarization. Greece would see this as unprovoked aggression requiring full retaliation. Another scenario involves a naval engagement. Turkish warships escorting commercial vessels could refuse Greek orders to stop. If Greek vessels attempt to enforce inspections, Turkish vessels could open fire. Once ships are shooting at each other, controlling escalation becomes extremely difficult. Naval combat produces casualties, and casualties create pressure for revenge. The most dangerous scenario is a broader Turkish military operation aimed at seizing disputed territory. Turkey could launch amphibious assaults on Greek islands. Turkish forces could capture